to the Painter Bride Quarterly Slush Pile. Thanks for tuning in and listening to us today. What we're about to do is discuss some poems that have been submitted to Painter Bride Quarterly, and I'll let you in on what the editorial process is like. So here we're still Zooming, and I'm at my home in Collingswood, New Jersey. I'm Kathleen Volk-Miller, and I'm gonna bounce it. Let's stay in America this time. Usually we go right over to Marion. We'll stay in America. Hi, Alex.
Hello, I'm Alex J. Tunney. I'm over in Long Island, which will be important later. Put a note in that. I have two major announcements. I have switched over to hot coffee. I've been uncle. And more importantly, I am now Uncle Alex to young Dina.
Oh. Congratulations. So are you saying that you drank iced coffee or you drank no coffee?
Well, I'm iced coffee until it gets like I'm freezing over. And then I'm like, okay, it's hot coffee time. Like I'm gonna hold it out until it's like 50 degrees out.
Yeah, we're getting in the low 50s overnight these days. So, all right.
Oh, and I'll pass the baton. Well, yeah, Sam, we're doing that.
She's in America. You forgot. She's here among us.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha or Sam. I like Sam, it's great. I am in my shared office in Johns Hopkins where I study and teach, and I have a little announcement too. I have a new part-time gig with Johns Hopkins University Press, which I'm really excited about. I'm working with Project Muse, so if any of you do that in their book division. So I am excited to kind of bring some ideas from there into our conversations here too now.
Oh, wow. That is super exciting, Sam. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and it's specifically a role they've built into for first generation college students, which is super cool. I think that's really neat.
That's super neat.
I'm gonna stay in America and go to Harmony.
Hello, I'm working with editing the podcast for Slush Pile, and this is a little bit of an aside, but I'm actually going to Johns Hopkins to visit my best friend in 2 weeks. So if you see me there,
let's have a coffee. Definitely, that's wonderful.
Wonderful. And Harmony works with Larissa Morgano, who's kind of here, I think, in spirit.
I'm here.
She's in. Oh, hello, Larissa.
Here in the States, here in West Philly, here in spirit, here in Zoom.
All the ways.
Half emptying my dishwasher while I mute myself and run around and do things. And my announcement is that it's hoodie season. And I'm very happy about hoodie season. Yes. And Marion even went and got her hoodie while we were chatting before. Alex already had his on. Yes. So Sam's going to need to get hers. Kathy, you need to get yours. And then I guess we can go international now and go to Marion.
Hello, Slushies. I am wearing my weird New Jersey hoodie in solidarity with this US-based Zoom call. So this is Marion. I'm here in Abu Dhabi hanging out with my cat, Imia, who will probably talk on this episode. And I can't wait to talk about these poems.
All right. Wonderful. Marion, what is the temperature still there in Abu Dhabi right now?
Oh, it just started to break. It's actually quite pleasant in the sort of low 80s.
Nice.
That's what it feels like. Yeah. But most important is the gorgeous moon that's rising, right? So I know you're all taking pictures of it too, but holy mackerel, it rose up tonight. It was just a gorgeous, gorgeous pink smudge on the horizon. So
wonderful. Yeah. So we're, Slushies, we never know exactly when these will be released, but we're talking to each other now in mid-October. So that's why we're all about the transition right now. So anyway, enough of all this. Let's get to these wonderful poems today. We have two poems by two different authors. We have Nancy Thorleifson and Rachael Philipps. And I think we're going to start with the Nancy Thorleifson. So thank you to the poets for allowing us to do this. So do this means we're going to start off by reading the poem, and Slushies. Know that you can also go to the website, pbqmag.org, and read along. Stop the recording, go read, come back, whatever you want to do. But the poem is available to you there as well as orally right now. So let's see who would like to volunteer to read.
Oh, so I'll volunteer as the Long Islander.
Oh, there you go. Great.
All right. Long Island Sound. The chop on the sound nearly drowns the clubbing. You deal blue fish on deck. Red slicks beneath one bold bastard, flipping you silvered curses, straining for water or flesh, some end. Then wind surprises, cracks you a backhand. A cleat bruise begins darkening your rose tattoo. They suspend at depth, hit and hit until sated and free or iced under gray. The bow begs a turning back. We know you'll refuse. Tired, still for a time not long, never long. You swear when the inboard coughs, taunts, and seizes. And the rain dares spit on your back in the hold. Under gulls striking near, the siren water sounds, gone unlovely, steady long gone. Just the sound of metal striking struck metal, like metal resisting your forge hard and hot and bent, and the gulls cry over diesel on waves, sheening a sad iridescence like soap on tongue.
Thank you.
Nicely read, Alex. And you know what? I love hearing this poem with a Long Island accent. Yeah. So I'm charmed and drawn in by this, like the not quite jargon, but the specificity of the description through the language of this expertise, right? Like something about like just, I mean, the scene is a fishing vessel and fish basically being caught and brained on the deck, right? So it's a work poem, but it's relying like heavily on that descriptive language to create this atmosphere that feels so apropos Long Island Sound.
Something I really love is how in that first stanza we have the chop on the sound nearly drowns the clubbing. You deal bluefish on deck. And actually the first line, I'm still sitting with it and thinking about it. And so it almost drowns for me the next line. It does what it describes in a way, this poem, in a way that is really satisfying and makes me immediately, as I'm going forward, still want to start from the beginning and reread it again.
Mm-hmm. After all of that brutality, right? And blood and metal and striking, like all those words, that last image, like soap on tongue, the intimacy of that is just really striking to me. To come into the body after all of that description is, I just want to stay there and think about that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of still mesmerized by the poem because as somebody who lives on Long Island, I think of the suburbs. You think like Nassau and like Suffolk County, and kind of forget that there's like there is a maritime kind of I don't know industry to it. Like there's still farmland on Long Island if you go like way far out. So it just like it's a side of Long Island that I don't usually see in work all the time. So just like that, because when I think of like fish and stuff like that, at least in America, I think of Boston for some reason. So it just like specifically the Long Island Sound is just interesting and yeah.
Well, okay, so now this is not the poem's fault, but right, like the songs about Long Island Sound, I'm thinking Billy Joel, right? So like the what is it, the Downeaster Alexa or something, like there's the classic Billy Joel tune that's sort of like focusing on the work of a fisherman, right? Or the work of a fishing fleet. But that's not to detract like from this poem. It's actually highlighting what also feels like these vernacular gestures of like, whereas it's that then when surprises cracks you a backhand, a cleat bruise begins darkening your rose tattoo, that there's something in the syntax there that isn't just, it's like in addition to the descriptive jargon, right, of cleats and fishing, there's something in the syntax that's catching a kind of accent as well, as sort of like it amplifies that sense of maritime work.
I'm trying to like think of what the accent is. Like I fell down a YouTube hole of like this guy, he was on Wired. He goes through, he like does the accent as he's like explaining how accents form, and like he goes to like for it's not just him obviously, because you can't talk about accents and like just have white accents, and so, but like I'm trying to figure out what the Long Island accent is, because it's complicated, because like it's like New York, but slightly, it's like the New York City typical, like I'm walking here, but like kind of it's slightly different. I don't know how to explain it. Like, and some of that's like that's an Italian kind of accent too, that's like evolved over generations. But I hear what Marion's saying, and I can't figure out how to describe it to beyond that. Yeah. Like it's like maybe the N's and the G's a little. I know, because you have like coffee talk. I can do the that sketch from SNL. But yeah, it's the N's, it's the G's, how they feel in your mouth. And then
Long
like this poem
Island.
picks up on it. Yeah.
Long Island is one word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Long Island.
Right.
Like in Nassau
Right.
County, and then it was Suffolk, and
Yeah. Yeah. So, but back to the poem too,
yeah.
right? Like it's, like it's a lyric, right? In the sense, not like the Billy Joel lyric, right?
Yeah.
But it's capturing this moment, right? And this kind of emotional affect, right? So it's a meditation on clubbing fish, but it comes back out of that to a description of the landscape, right? And so it's from that like specificity out to this bigger description of the landscape. And to Alex's point, my God, you forget, right? You forget Long Island, right, is surrounded by water, as is New York City, right? Like these are maritime places, but we blow past that and forget. We just forget, right? That so much of life unfolds in this way, right? On the water.
Yeah.
For some.
Can we talk about this? I was struck by this the first time I read it. It starts with, drowns the clubbing U deal bluefish on deck, right? So we know who the U is and we know what's happening. But everything is against the fisher person, right? Everything is against the fisher person. The bluefish are flipping silvered curses. The wind cracks you a backhand. The boat itself, the inboard coughs and taunts and seizes, and the reindeer spit on your back, right? That is really interesting to me, that this fisherman is clubbing these bluefish and everything else is attacking him. The boat, the wind, the rain, the fish.
I would thinking about that and like kind of the placement of the people in this, I would like to read this poem with the Tracey J Smith villanelle Solstice, where I think it starts with like they're gassing geese at JFK. And much like this poem, it's kind of like in some ways about that everyday interaction between humans and animals sharing a particular place, and kind of those shifting power dynamics. And I think that's something that I like about this poem, that I think I could enter this poem with kind of feeling different ways, maybe about human beings or about animals or the world. and have a different read of it each time, depending on like where I am in those thoughts when I'm reading it, which is much similar. It's much the same of the experience of the Smith poem I mentioned.
Oh, I think Marion was taking notes and she'll reference that poem in the notes. So are we getting to that moment, guys?
Yeah, I guess the last thing I'm somebody who I bounce off of poems that are like just observations on nature. And then what I like about this is like maybe it's slopolistic, but like to have the human in nature and like what does that mean? Because that brings up so many questions like human as part of nature, what nature can do to humans. Like I'm in a place and I'm like observing like a person in nature, or I'm able to put myself in the fisherman's shoes in this case. And so I like what the poem's doing and like what questions it kind of brings up tangentially.
Mhm, mhm. But we didn't mention this really obvious thing too, Long Island sound. You guys spoke so much about the accent, and I don't think I ever would have even thought about the accent, but I thought about the, pun intended, of the sounds of Long Island, right? The sounds of Long Island sound. There's so much sound in this poem. So it's interesting that you guys also, the sound of the accent came through too. There's a lot of sound.
Hey, Liam, that is actually something I keep looking back at the poem, the way it sort of lays out on the page too, right? Like the stanzas are of varying length, right? So some are 1, 2, 3, 4, like 6 lines or 4 lines or 3 lines, five lines, right? And so like I can't quite put my finger on the sort of structural pattern there. And most of them are like chunky, right? Like chunky stanzas, except for when we get to the end. And then the last 4 lines are in couplets. But and at first as a reader, I'm just like, what's the structure here? What's the choice? How does this cohere? So I'm like a little flummoxed by it, but in love with the sound, as you just put it, right? So, and I'm gonna read it again, right from the middle. And the rain dares spit on your back in the hold, under gulls striking near. The siren water sounds gone unlovely, steady long gone. Just the sound of metal striking struck metal, like metal resisting your ford, hard and hot and bent. And the gulls cry over diesel on waves, the sheening a sad iridescence like soap on tongue, right? And I just wanted to try to read that out loud because it looks like it's harder to say it, right? Because those lines extend in a way that the other stanzas don't. But oh my God, is that fun to say?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, when you said chunky, I'm like, so Manhattan clam chowder or New England clam chowder?
I like Rhode Island. I like when we mix them up. So how about a vote?
All right.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, vote. And it's unanimous. Woohoo. All right. Thank you so much, Nancy Thorleifson, for allowing us the honor of reading and having so much fun with your poem. And I'm so glad that's in. And now we're going to move on to Rachael Philipps, After You Left Us. Are you wanting to read, Mare?
Can I read this one? If it's all right with the gang? Sam, did you want to jump
Absolutely.
in?
Please
Okay.
do.
All right. So across time and space, bending the space-time continuum from Abu Dhabi. If I get raptured, I promise I'll come back.
Okay.
Which, by the way, is perfect context for this poem by Rachael Philipps. After you left us. After you left us, I got the call. Her cremains are ready, she said. The what? I said. The cremains. Cremated remains, she explained testily, like, duh. Oh, I say, her ashes. What I wanted to say, She should never be called cremains. Of course, I angry Googled it. Industry term, euphemism, first found in a newspaper obituary in 1947. Discovered that her body, once incinerated, was swept from the furnace with a metal broom and looked nothing like ashes or cremains, but like sand and bleached sticks, a desiccated high tide at the beach. I found myself admiring our stubborn big bones, which apparently always refused to yield to 1800 degrees. Yet even they must submit to process, get pulverized in a cremulator to a uniform grind to fit the urn, to make the gone and their place inside us take up the least space possible.
Thank you, Marion. Great reading. Now we've been stunned to silence. Slushies and new listeners, we often read a poem and then you'll hear nothing and you think you've been cut out or you've dropped the recording, but it's just us thinking.
I was just going to say, I angry Google, and I'm so sorry that Jason's not actually on the call. There's something about the line breaks and the pacing in this poem that I can almost hear Jason's intonation in the syntax here, right? Like I can just imagine, I got the call, her cremains are ready. She said, the what? I said, the cremains, cremated remains, right? Like I can like just hear Jason's sort of arch delivery of this. Which to the credit of the poem, right? So it's using very casual language. And again, like the earlier poem, a very specific contemplation of jargon, right? Difference being here is like the other poem was using jargon to describe the world. This one's using the jargon to like unravel and contemplate the impossibility of human remains, of grief, of all of us ultimately turned to dust or sand and grit, as the case may be.
I think the thing I admire the most about the poem is that it's not sentimental, and it really is just describing what happens when a body gets cremated until that last stanza, when we finally get the peak at the grief.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I admire the way that image works too, right? Creating the least space inside of us, right? Like, I'm gonna make sure I have that right. And to make the gone and their place inside us take up the least space possible. I love the duality of that, right? Like the acknowledgement that grief is forever with you, right? You're scarred by that, right? You're gonna carry that with you, right? But there's something about the effortful move to turn a body into ashes, right? As if to acknowledge you want it to be as compressed and compacted as possible. I really am drawn to that articulation.
I like how the like invocation of the year 1947 really makes me step back a moment, because the first stanzas feel so contemporary, like the duh and just kind of the quick back and forth, kind of the irreverence to what's happening. And then, almost the words newspaper signal to me something older. And then we get the 40s, and it comes as this kind of like delight that that this term could possibly be from that time, because it just feels something so modern. Like it's hard to even imagine for me, like people back then, like being so flippant in a way.
Yeah, I the word you use, a reference, that was a word I was trying to look for, because what strikes me about this poem is it starts off with a human's irreverence towards death. Like, I mean, we don't know the other person on the line. It might just be their job, and they see this all day, and they have to, like, that's how they operate. But then becomes a meditation on nature's irreverence towards life and death. So I just that and it does it so seamlessly that like that he used there's angry googled is in the same is a word used in the same poem that like pondering grief and the mysteries of life and death. So just a very, very well handled. Yeah. I'm gesturing and I'm not saying words, which is famously podcasting visual medium. It's Long Island.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just to sort of get behind what both Samantha and Alex are saying there too, this sort of juxtaposition, right, of this super casual contemporary flippant language, right, with historical details and the sort of existential contemplation. Like it's a wild mix. It's just a wild mix of gestures, right? That come like the voice is really clear. Plus, I get a sense of the voice's relationship to the person who's passed. The sort of like refusal to envision this person transformed thusly, right? And yet the process is in play.
Just recently, on a personal note, I've been thinking about how everyone who have been aware of their death of late has been cremated. I just think that everybody's getting cremated. And then when I read this poem and saw, I had the same reaction that Sam did. Somehow when I read that it was first used in 1947, it compelled me to look and see if my hunch was right, that we're getting cremated more than ever. And I was surprised that we've only just passed 50%, like half of people are being cremated. Because I thought it was even higher. But they predict that it will be more popular soon. Like it'll be 80% of the population. Right now it's half the population. But it has increased exponentially since the 40s, apparently. You know, that we're doing that. It's been increasing every year until we've now reached half of people. And I just thought that was interesting. And here, when I read this, it compelled me to not angry Google, but curiosity Google, because I've been just thinking that everybody gets cremated now. And it's still not everybody, it's only half.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because in my family, there's a bit of a humorously like cynical reaction to death. Like my grandmother who passed away last year, and my mom now, it's like, oh, you put me in a trash bag, and like I'm good, just cremate me, I'm good, like that kind of pause it. And then like I'm also thinking when my grandmother was cremated, and like it's a bit of her sense of humor that she got stuck in like Connecticut for like 3 months after she passed away, because just between all the stuff that was happening early in the pandemic. So I just I love there's a bit of sense of humor in this too. Like it is it is sentimental towards the end, but like cremain sounds like something I can buy off a shelf. Like also like it sounds like a cookie if you're not like thinking about it too hard. So I do love that there's it balances sense of humor and sentimentality that's also struck very carefully. So that I our family's weird about or like not as I don't know. We have an interesting view of death, I guess.
Well, I think what is universal here too is that you would become almost to also to not assuage your grief, but to think about something else for a minute. All of these details, you know, the metal broom, the 1800 degrees, like it, knowing all those details is kind of like, you know, the car accident thing. You're compelled to look even as you're repelled when you realize that is your person. She should never be called cremains, but yet she gives us all these facts about it because she can't, you know, help but look what actually does happen. What do they do? How does this actually work? You know?
Yeah, I think that for me is also part of the really dramatic impact the poem has for me, like when our parents pass away, right? Like, I don't know how to say this without getting really personal, but my father-in-law is not doing well, right? And the way in which we're talking about his transition in life is extremely technical and tied to finances and insurance policies and what are we going to do with the cremains, right? And the language of that allows, like, it's both a distraction, like you said, but it puts a gap between, like, it just puts a gap between us and the experience of this and Michael himself, right? And I think that's part of why this poem feels like uncanny in a way. Like you said, it's like cremate, like I thought more than 50% of the world, folks in the US, for instance, are getting cremated. I thought it was much more commonplace than that, even though that is an increase, right? I had no idea what's going on since 1947, right? But it's the use of jargon to create a buffer, right, between the fact of the death and the experience of the death, and yet that emotion still manifests at the end of the poem in a way that is a theory of grief is fascinating to me. It just really resonates.
Yeah. And I think we should also bring up that title, the emotionality, after you left us is purely emotional. And then the whole poem is factual, right? Like to relay the phone call is not, is not even about this loved one that died at all, really, right? And so I kind of dig, I like that very much, that it starts off with almost heavy-handed emotionality and then steps away completely until the end.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kathy. Like, the gone is the smallest part of this poem, and I think that for me is what takes this poem into the celestial in a way, because that's what I see time and time again. Like when people talk about, or when I talk about people I've lost, you kind of speed skate through that moment of talking about them and then get like into the facts, because it's just easier.
Right. Well, editorial staff, are we voting? Let's say so. Okay, they're all nodding. Also, Slushies. Visually, everybody's nodding. So 1, 2, 3, vote. And it is also unanimous. Thank you, Rachael Philipps. I'm so honored to both read this and now publish it. Thank you so much.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Interesting. So as a like wrap up moment here, this is an interesting project to look at 2 separate poems by 2 separate poets on a single issue. And yet was by accident, not choreography, thinking about specificity, vocabulary, jargon, language, how both of them come in as accents, right, for the emotions or the ideas in these poems. It's just it's a cool juxtaposition. So thank you, poets.
Thank you, poets, for helping us out. All right. Does anybody have anything else they need to say on this very good day? Okay, well, Slushies, let us know how we're doing. And poets, thank you one more time. Nancy Thorleifson and Rachael Philipps, thank you so very much. And thank everybody for being here, and keep reading. Woohoo!